In 3, 2, 1.
John, are we live?
We're live, sir.
Sorry, guys. I know we are fashionably late the last couple weeks. This week was a little bit out of our hands, different than last week where we had the electrical issues in here. But this week we had a last-minute cancellation by a guest that couldn't make it today. And we scrambled a little bit to try to find a replacement guest, but it's difficult to do. And we just didn't want to not have a show because we like being consistent. And John is a man of consistency. When we thought about not doing a show, he said, there is no way we're not doing a show. So John very graciously came into studio and cut a bunch of clips out from old shows. And what we wanted to do was do a throwback show. We've done one in the past before. We wanted to do another one that featured a couple of our really cool guests. And John's done a really good job of that. But before we do that, I want to see if John has any shout outs.
You know, with everything going on, I didn't have a chance to put together shout-outs, but I'm glad that we're here, and yeah, sorry we're late, people, but as Mo said, consistency is only good when you're consistent. So we just got to keep on keeping on, and we'll be back next week with guests, but for today, it's just you and me.
Yeah, no, which is totally cool by me. I enjoy doing these Mo and John shows, and this week we're not doing just kind of a question Mo and John because we didn't know this was going to happen. But like I said, John came into the studio and started to really quickly cut out some past shows to feature for you guys. I got only one small shout out, and it's one thing that we were just talking about before we came here when you and I were grabbing a bite to eat, and it's a best wishes to the people obviously affected by the hurricane. Seeing the videos of the absolute disaster that happened to the Bahamas is heart-wrenching, and it's almost like it's fake. It's so dramatic that it feels fake. I have friends of mine, Brad and Buzz McCall, who have a home down there. Obviously very sorry to see the video you guys put up of the destruction of the neighborhood that you guys have grown up enjoying down there, and best wishes to your friends and family who do live down there, and then obviously to anybody who's down there. It's incredible. We were talking about it, and it was basically a hurricane that was a Category 5, which almost never happens, and then one that was moving at a mile an hour, which never ever happens. I mean, it just sat on top of the Bahamas and absolutely destroyed them, which really kind of puts your bad days sometime in perspective. I had a couple bad days recently, and I just kept thinking about how lucky I am not to be in the Bahamas right now.
I concur. It's, as you said, it was just, it got there, it sat there, and these poor people, I mean, you got nowhere to go.
Yeah, can't drive away.
No, exactly. And who knew? Not that being in a hurricane is great by any stretch, but who knew it was going to be that bad? I mean, people who might have left, had they known, had no idea that they was just going to hover like that.
And they are landlocked. You know, like in Florida, you're like, okay, I'm going to drive north now. I'm just going to get the heck out. I can go to Georgia. I'll just drive through the states. I'll get out. People in the Bahamas, especially, it's pretty third. If you've ever been there, it's third world. Mm-hmm. You know, you might have Atlantis and Grand Bahama and some of the nice areas that some of you watching might have frequented for vacations, but generally speaking, it's very third world as well. Mm. People can't just up and leave.
No.
And they probably didn't expect it to just sit on top of them for, a sustained couple days at a time.
Yeah, I agree. But
unbelievable.
It has moved along,
yep.
And hopefully the people that are there that need help will get the help that they need quickly, and they can start to rebuild and repair their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to all the people from Florida and the South East who are actually taking all their supplies and shipping them down there because they weren't hit too hard, so they're shipping all their hurricane supplies down there.
Yeah. Ooh, what do you got going on there?
I don't know. I'm going to have a sip of water. Didn't expect that to come on.
Maybe
I don't have a cough button here like we did when I was WGN. Need like a cough button to shut my mic off.
Our next studio is going to be whacked out with gadgets and such. So
cuss and cough buttons.
Cuss and cough. CNC buttons.
CNC buttons. So should we go on to our first clip?
Well, I think that's a fine idea. So, as Mo mentioned, we kind of scrambled a little bit. So this is not going to be my best editing by any stretch, but we did want to make sure to come on and say hello. And we thought the one good thing about the show being now a year and a half-ish is we've got a nice collection of content with some great people, smart people, who have laid out nuggets of information, really gold, that we are able to pick from. So this was last minute, but the first clip I'm going to show is from like episode, gosh, I didn't even write it down. It was early. It was like 15 or 16, about a year ago. And it was a young couple, and Jessica and Eric, I believe, were their names, their first names. And they have a company named Fronin Ice Cream. And if you recall, it was banana-based ice cream. And neither of us had tried it prior to them coming in. And when they brought it in, we actually tried it on the air. I was blown away. We've bought it several times since. So, but you asked a great question. We always ask for a piece of advice, but you framed it because they were or are so young. A little different perspective, and they were still really new, 2-3 months, I think was. So you really framed the question, and it was just kind of cool to hear Eric's response. I'm going to play that now.
You guys give a piece of advice to young business owners or entrepreneurs trying to get into any business?
Yeah, I would say just don't be afraid to ask for help. I mean, being so young and not having full-time work experience, it put us at a slight disadvantage, but, we definitely made effort with the mentorship that we received, and just asking people in the network and the community really helped us out a lot.
So with Eric saying that not to be scared to ask, so many people, when they get into a business, and naturally everybody wants to succeed, but nobody wants to feel or look as though they don't know exactly what they're doing. And therefore they'll let their ego get in the way, and they won't ask for advice. And these two were so grounded and focused that I applauded them for saying, hey, you know what? You got to reach out to your network. You got to ask. And if it looks like you don't know what you're doing for a moment, it's probably because you don't. And just ask questions and get good info back and move on. So that was really cool.
Yeah. First of all, like you mentioned earlier, being 2-3 months in, unbelievable how far they had come in 2-3 months.
Oh, yeah.
And back to what you said about how amazing it tastes, incredible. I mean, it was healthy. I think it was 200 to 300 calories, which was insane for ice cream. For the whole pint.
Yeah.
And just absolutely delicious. And the fact that they had the know-it-all to seek advice out, like you said. Mm-hmm. I remember when I first started, I was very scared to ask people for advice because A, it made me seem like I, like you said, didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And B, I felt like I was bugging people too much.
True.
And that got in my way of asking. But I've now come to find from growing a couple businesses and then also being a person that people sometimes now thankfully reach out to for advice, that most people don't mind giving advice. And why not reach out and at least see if somebody's willing to help you out? And I've found that almost everybody I've ever reached out to for advice has openly given it to me. I can maybe think of one situation, I won't name the person, who just basically blew me off.
Go ahead.
No, I basically was like, blew me off, I don't have time for you. But a lot of very busy people will take a couple minutes or a lunch or a dinner or at least a phone call to try to help you out.
Absolutely.
So please ask. I mean, you and I just recently did a show on how to run a podcast, given by no means we're, Joe Rogan-esque at it.
Right.
But we've come a long way and we're probably experts compared to most, you especially, but we're willing to give people advice in this. I'm willing to give people advice on the legal side, real estate side. And shout out to them for being very, very successful very quickly. Really having a good head on their shoulders, being a couple that's able to work with one another. That was the other thing in that show where they really got along well.
Yeah, they did.
Most couples can barely get along seeing each other at night, let alone being around each other all day and growing a successful business together.
They were good. So I guess the little nugget is just take your ego and put it off to the side and ask what you have to ask and get the information and move on. Say thank you and always reciprocate. I feel it's important to reciprocate to somebody who is willing to give you time, but also pay it forward.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next clip we're going to put up was, I mean, all of the things we talk about in here are business oriented and focused and such, but some, I feel at least, some show subjects, and the guests that we have are a little more, it's just a little more important, you know, to put it lightly. And this lady that we're going to put on the screen next, her name is Kathy Ragnar. She is the executive director of Sarah's Circle. And actually, for those of you that follow us on Instagram and Facebook, I put this out earlier, and I thought it was important enough, or is important enough, to play live on the air and then talk a little bit about it, because the work that she and the organization is doing for women who have found themselves in dire situations, really bad spells, I applaud her, and just a lot of respect. So I'm going to put this on the screen now. This is Kathy Ragnar.
There's specific issues that affect homeless women more so than men. What are some of those things that really kind of set that apart for women who are struggling with homelessness?
And I have, when I say I have learned so much in the last 13 years about the complexity of women's homelessness. So many women, at least 1 in 5, are directly homeless because of violence from men. And it's usually a domestic violence situation at their home. And a woman who is homeless is far more susceptible to violence on the street than her male counterpart.
Of course. Mm-hmm. And you guys both do temporary and permanent housing, correct?
We do.
Okay.
So we have the drop-in center, and then the interim housing program, that's designed for a woman to come in. She has her own bed, her own storage area, and very comprehensive services, and our goal is to get her into permanent housing within about 120 days.
Wow, that's very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So with Kathy talking about a woman finding herself in a violent situation at home, leaving that situation, and then finding herself on the street where violence is everywhere, and just not having a place to turn, Sarah's Circle is doing temporary housing with the eye on permanent housing, and really has done just so much. Even since Kathy was on, we've looked into it a little bit and read up different updates and such, and just the work they're doing. I think that she was talking about a new building that they were in the process of putting together when she was here, and it's moving forward. And she's just really, she is an inspiration. I find her to be very inspirational.
I completely agree. And after the show, I was actually at a charity event, and it was an event where several different people would pitch one charity, and then everybody collectively at the event would back the charity that got the most votes. So unbeknownst to me, I didn't know Sarah's Circle was going to be one of the people presented, because they literally pull 3 people to go up and present a charity. Sure enough, Sarah's Circle went up, or a lady who is supporting Sarah's Circle, and it was unbelievable to watch the entire room quickly vote for Sarah's Circle. I mean, it was almost like a landslide victory for Sarah's Circle. Wow. And I think it's because of the message. It's because of the hard work they put in. It's because of the efforts they're putting forward to help women who are in abusive situations, who then end up becoming homeless, to get back on their feet. Because we spoke about homelessness a couple times on the show. We know Chicago has a problem, better than some cities, but it's a big city with a real homelessness problem.
Yes.
But it's also very different when it's for women. You know, when Kathy was on here, she was explaining some of the nuances of the difficulty women face in specific to being homeless. I mean, I can imagine. I couldn't imagine being homeless, but you know, as a guy, I almost feel like I'd feel safer. I feel like there's just so many things that go on for a woman to have to be homeless, and for her to really focus her life attention on now making sure that this charity moves ahead, and like you said, has a new building, and just really makes a big stand to end homelessness in Chicago. Kudos to her. I mean,
Absolutely.
I was in San Francisco between the time that Kathy was here in this show as well, and we've spoken off air about it. I've said it on air too. What I think Chicago does so well is, and people poo-poo Chicago for a lot of things, and they do some stuff very wrong, and there is
Sure.
some corruption in the city, and we tax the crap out of everything.
Oof.
Basically, the air is left to be taxed. They're thinking of doing a congestion tax now for commuting. Like basically, if
Oh,
you're
yeah,
driving
yeah.
and
Yep.
they're taxing everything. But
Right.
I think Chicago as a community, set aside politics, does a really good job of taking care of people in Chicago compared to other cities. When I walked through San Francisco, it was like the city had forgotten about the homelessness situation. I'm sure there's charities out there trying to do a good
Sure.
deed, but it was on a level that we would never allow to happen here in Chicago. I mean, it was almost an embarrassment to the city. And Chicago is such a great city because of people like Kathy who are spending a lot of their time, effort, and their life's work to solve this sort of problem.
I've never been in San Fran, but just seeing some of the things on the news, whatever news channel you watch, it's hard to escape. And you're right. It just seems there are just stretches and stretches of tent cities and people who don't even have tents and needles and this and that. And
it's real. I genuinely, I had seen it on TV too, but I thought it would have been a very saturated little area of a city that's not near the big parts of the city.
Right.
A lot of crime happens in Chicago, but when you're walking around downtown Chicago, you're not readily seeing that.
Right.
For right or for wrong, they should fix the crime everywhere. But I was in Nob Hill in San Francisco, which is supposed to be kind of a nice area. And I went for about a 1 mile walk to go to a Walgreens. So I just took a little walk. And there was a stretch of, I want to say, 5 blocks where it was like that. I mean, it was homeless person after homeless person after homeless person. It was sad. It was difficult to walk through there and not get choked up because it was so bad. It was like the city had forgotten about him. And here you have a city who's got studios going for $3,100 a month.
Crazy.
There's wealth there. There's people who have a lot of money who just don't give a shit about what's going on in their city. And excuse my language, it really is the city and the people have stopped giving a shit about the homelessness population. So shout out to Chicago and specifically our guest Kathy for actually caring and making a difference, because go to other big cities in the U.S.
Right.
And I'm using the U.S. Forget around the world. There's some real problems around the world.
Yeah.
But in a very civilized culture in a country like the United States, that should not be on the
Absolutely
scale
not.
that we see there. And thankfully, our city and Kathy are doing great stuff to help solve it here.
I concur. So we're going to do just one last clip. And it has 2 guests in the clip. They were friends, or are friends. Kelly Johnson, who is the CEO of Ballast Group, and you can speak to that a little bit. And her friend and coach, Deborah Sunderland, from Sunderland Coaching. They were on together, and it was a great back and forth between the two of them because they have such a good relationship. And you would ask one a question, and she would answer, but almost pass the ball to the other, and then back and forth. It was a great show. And I just wanted to, you asked, as you do often, for a piece of advice, because everybody has their own perspective on things, whether it's all business or a little bit of life in general. And I just thought it was cool, the 2 of them and the advice they gave, and you could see their connection a little bit. I'm going to play that now.
Kelly, I'll start with you. We always ask on the show if it could be for an entrepreneur, a business owner, or just any life advice in general. Any advice for anybody maybe starting a business or who's a business owner?
Yes, the year I started Ballast Group, Steve Jobs gave the commencement speech at Stanford, and the title was "Stay Hungry, Stay Foolish." And I never forgot that because as a kid, I was really scrappy and hungry, but I always remembered you can't forget to laugh at yourself, and you can't be afraid to make mistakes and look foolish. Because if you don't try, you'll never get to the next level. I always try to put myself in like 1 or 2 notches ahead of where I think I am, because that's where I'm going to learn and grow.
Deborah?
Just to come back within. Be with yourself. Be still. Listen to yourself. Trust yourself. Create what you most want and believe you can create whatever you want. You truly can. It's what you believe.
So with Kelly simply saying it's okay to laugh at yourself and realize you're going to make mistakes, and a lot of growth can come out of those mistakes. And then for Deborah to second that motion by saying just believe in yourself and focus on and picture what it is that you want, whatever it might be. And if you believe in yourself and you picture that, you can move towards that. So what I saw from that clip was one saying, hey, you know what? You just have to keep moving along, and you're gonna stumble a little bit, but take a breath, realize it's not the end of the world, laugh it off, laugh at yourself, and then keep moving with that belief. And for Deborah to come right behind that and say, believe in yourself and just keep focusing on the big prize. I just thought the two of them put together were great guests.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Kelly and Deborah both obviously were a fantastic duo to have on because they shared a lot of different advice, but from similar mindsets, if that makes sense, because they both worked a lot with one another and helping each other advance their businesses. Like you said, Deborah was her coach, but Kelly then, grew a very successful business and they work very, very well together. Mm-hmm. They were both a whole lot of fun. We talked about sailing. We talked about a whole lot of stuff on that show.
A whole lot of stuff, yeah, for sure.
But I agree, both of them have very successful businesses, but the theme was don't quit and keep moving forward.
Exactly.
And, we've used the term fail forward a couple times here, mm-hmm. but I think that they highlighted the fact that as a successful entrepreneur, you're always going to have some struggle, but you have to make forward motion. Don't go mm-hmm. backwards, and you're going to learn from every mistake. And I love that part of, laugh about it. Don't take yourself seriously. You and I were just doing these clips, and I'll out myself. John and I are trying to better ourselves at doing this, whether it's John on the audio visual side or me as being a host. And we were listening to one of the early shows, and I just kept repeating certain things over and over again. And I burst out into laughter. I said, shit, like this would be torture for me. I told John, if you wanted to put me in a torture chamber, make me listen to myself do that episode again for over and over again, and in 12 to 24 hours, I'm done. Mm-hmm. But you have to be self-aware to be able to do that. Say, okay, like this is a mistake. I've done something wrong. Laugh about it and better it, and eventually try to become the best version of yourself. And mm-hmm. both of them obviously went through their struggles and what they've learned, and they're super successful. The strategy of the Ballast Group and how they look at strategic strategies to help some companies, either from launch or even Fortune 500 companies they worked with, work on their strategy and their media and how to present themselves was really a very interesting take from her. And then obviously Deborah's coaching and her advice was incredible as well. So if you have a company or you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, those are two people you really should look up to try to either help your business move forward or help you as an actual entrepreneur become a better version of yourself. Because a lot of entrepreneurs fail at having a accountability partner or a coach. Mm-hmm. They get to a certain point where they're like, hey, listen, I'm successful, but they don't try to better themselves. And a lot of times that level of becoming a better leader will help the whole company grow as well.
I agree 100%. And actually, the clips that we have in here, I made mention I had already put Kathy's up this morning, but then these other ones we did just to prepare for today's show last minute. But I'm also going to repost them over the next few days because they really are, and I'll put the episode numbers in the notes and put in some links as far as how whoever is watching can reach out to these folks, because there's some smart people sitting around this table pretty much every week. This week, just you and me. So
added up, our IQs are okay. But I think you hit a really strong point there, John, because you go on social media or you go on Instagram, Facebook, you go on the internet and you try to find motivation from people. And you look on all these pages that have these motivational quotes, and they're fantastic. I look at them. We post some of them from time to time. I've shamelessly been bad at doing it recently, but our guests have come on this show, and the clips that you post, the short clips with advice, are little clips that have really good information if you're looking for motivation from anything, whether it be a charity. We've had fitness folks on, we've had entrepreneurs on, talked about struggle, talked about people who've overcome illnesses. I mean, there's so many tidbits of information on our Instagram page or our Facebook page. If you want a quick look, go to our Instagram page, and I mean this. If you follow us already, you already see it. If not, follow us, not just to give us more followers, but really, if you want a dose of motivation. I've learned so much from our guests being on the show.
I agree.
And being able to do this for a year and a half, that if you're the type of person that goes on pages looking for motivation, go on there. Our goal at the beginning of doing WheelHouse was to be able to bring you guys this shared knowledge of people who are very successful or who've gone through struggles. And those little clips you post, they're anywhere from 15 seconds to 60 seconds, and they have gold in them. There's some real gold information.
They really do. I agree 100%. So those will be out, and we will continue to put more.
We have a shout out we cannot miss. It's in the comment section. If you miss it, you're in trouble.
What?
Maggie, I'm thankful that you let us know. Can we shout out Maggie's mom's birthday?
Oh,
we cannot miss it.
That's right.
I did not know, Maggie. Happy birthday to your mom from me.
Fran, happy birthday. We were out actually for dinner on Saturday, I believe it was, and had a great time. She's a wonderful lady, great sense of humor, and her mom and dad, Maggie's mom and dad, have been married for 40 some odd years.
Wow,
coming
congratulations.
Up on 50. Yeah. Just great people. And so, Fran, happy birthday to you. And it was fun over the weekend, and we will be seeing you very shortly as well again. And everything's great, and happy birthday. All right.
Happy birthday from me, too.
Absolutely.
Thanks for letting us know, Maggie.
So that is today's show.
Abbreviated show. But
Abbreviated show.
I think it was an impactful show. And like we said at the top of the show, sometimes we can't control when people last minute cancel on us, but we do our very, very best to come back and at least bring you some good content.
Exactly.
Which is our goal.
Yep.
And next week, do we want to announce next week's guest? I mean, we might not have a clip for him.
I
but
did not.
Do you want me to announce him?
Sure, go ahead.
So next week we have Sean Jacob on. He has a studio not very far from us called Yoga 2.0.
Yep.
It's blowing up. It's very, very popular.
Yep.
I've seen a handful of people that I know personally on my social media tag there, and I'm excited to chat with him. Just from our little interactions back and forth and reading about his story, he's going to be really, really cool to have on the show.
I agree 100%. I'm looking forward to it. And really, I would love to get over there and see it because I've heard great things about it as well, the studio, and I look forward to meeting him and hearing what he has to say and his journey.
You want to do a 2-person yoga class?
I think we should take video of it. I'll do it. Absolutely.
You're probably more flexible than I am.
I work on it. I work on stretching.
You know that one where like you have to twist your arms like this? I don't know if they can see it. Like you twist your arms.
They can see it. You just want to put your bicep.
No, I can't do that. I look like a fool. And the crazy thing about a yoga studio is, not crazy, but it's just how it is. There's a mirror, so everybody can see how sucky you are at yoga, and I'm really bad.
Yes.
So maybe Sean can give me some tips when we go on.
You have to take time to laugh at yourself and realize you're doing good for yourself and keep moving forward.
Yeah, excited to chat about yoga, his entrepreneurship, and his story because he's got a really cool story as well.
Yes, I concur with all of that. So until next week, anything else?
No, that's it. We'll see you next week at 3 o'clock Central with a guest. We promise you.
We promise.
Have a great week, and hope you guys had a great Labor Day.
In 3, 2, 1.